Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. Sorry we are a little bit late, but Kev will explain. He's been running around all over the place and he had to dash in to get here for you guys to do our live show. First one back for a while. Our fans forum, we've asked for questions. We've got plenty of questions to go through, and then obviously covering any topics that you guys want to cover in the comments. So keep your questions coming in. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We are less than 250 away from the big 6,000 subscribers. So we're edging closer and closer and closer. So thank you all for your support, but we don't want to stop there. So please do keep liking and subscribing. And as I said, get your comments in. Kev, mate, it's been a while. How are you doing, first of all? And are you missing football? Are you bored out your brains for Premier League to come back, or are you enjoying a bit of a rest?
Is the season finished?
No, well, you might. If you want to watch Dortmund against, who was it today? Fluminense or something?
I thought it was just an international break. Have we got? Where did we finish? No, yeah, I am. Do you know what? I don't normally think this, but I did think I needed a bit of a break from football. It was a bit mental, wasn't it, at the end of the season? It was the hope that kills you with that crazy run in the league, of which we didn't really get enough credit for it, because obviously we balls it up at the end, in terms of throwing it away when we just needed a draw. But anyway, we won't go back over old ground again. So yeah, it's been nice to have the break, but I'm starting to get that itch again now. That itch. There's a certain gentleman on the podcast with me tonight who eases that pain a little bit with his few little transfer update videos and stuff. Keeps me busy.
Trying.
If you haven't seen them, guys, get in the get on the channel and have a look. Few rumor videos going around, but that kind of keeps it going. I couldn't give two hoots about international football. I could have given less hoots about this Club World Cup. Yeah, I'd rather watch a couple of tadpoles play football in the pond, in the garden. So it's just a waste of time. I just want Premier League football back. But there's obviously this spectre of PSR. We're going to make a sale. We're going to bring anybody in. What's going to go on? I'm really excited about next season as well, because I just think that, with the right kind of movements in the transfer market, I think we could have a proper go at it. So yeah, mate, I'm all right. I'm here. I haven't even had a shower, so apologies for anyone that lives around about the Birmingham area.
Good job. It's not smell-o-vision.
That waft through the window might be me, because I've done about 20,000 steps today now. And yeah, I've not even had a chance to have a shower to be on this podcast to see all of you guys.
Exactly.
That's why.
That's dedication for you. Just get in the comments. Engine number 9 is buzzing. You're here, Kev. Hope Kev is in tonight. Uplifting Villa
Come
chat.
on, engine number 9.
Rachel, good evening. Black Country Villain, good evening to you, mate. We've got Geordie Toon for life in. I've starred your question. We will, of course, get onto the fixtures tomorrow. The fixtures coming out tomorrow, i.e. Wednesday. James is in. Jean as well. Good evening to you. She thinks we're going to be away first game. We'll see. Dristas, good evening. Come on, Kev, do your...
Kalispera, Christos. Kalispera.
There
you go. That's me done there. That's me done.
Duncan as well. Stephen, great to have you in. Stephen Van Leer as well. Hi, great to see you back. Feels like ages since the Tuesday session.
Absolutely.
Exactly, mate. It has been a long time. Mr. Green, finally. There we go. And yeah, for your itch, Julie said there is some cream for that, Kev. I was going to say that, but she got there ahead of me. And yeah, Adamski, good evening to you. And John, you need to look after that belching, mate. But evening, gents, or non-binary people, yeah, don't leave anyone out. Dave said evening, or hope we're not away at Old Trafford opening day. Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. And Dave, another Dave, evening, gents, nice to catch a live one. Great to have you in. So, like we say, get your questions in, get your comments in. We'll just do a bit of a free for all, really. I know we'll probably cover through the questions, the PSR, the squad cost ruling, the sale of the ground naming rights, the women's team, fixtures tomorrow, transfer rumors. You name it, we'll cover it. I'm sure we'll cover it. Where do we start? Peter had a question. Let's talk PSR and FFP. Are we silly to allow FFP/PSR to hold us back when you look at what benefit breaking the rules has had for Man City, a team that was not as big as us now? Now they surpass us.
Well, I don't think it's as simple as that. I mean, I've made some slightly, and just to be clear, for anyone who thinks the opposite to this, sometimes some of the stuff I say is deliberately hyperbolic for banter. I didn't ever genuinely think we should take the 6 point fine and go crazy. I do have trust in the powers that be at the club to be able to do what they need to do to to get us through some of these murky waters. However, I understand the point entirely, but that I think that goes to me speaks to a wider point of how unfair it is that City, Chelsea, to a lesser extent, as in it's not talked about as much, Man United, because they got good at the start of the Premier League when the money really came into football. That's when they really, really kicked on, isn't it? So, um, yeah, and I feel like teams like Villa, Newcastle haven't had the opportunity to kick on now in the same way we would be able to with the wealth of the owners that we've got. But you've got to play by the rules, and even if you start doing silly things that like Chelsea are doing, it will cripple you in Europe because you'll breach the UEFA rules. So it's not as simple as that, really. We either have to hope
Mm.
everybody gets together and and obviously clubs together in terms of making the decisions to change some of the caps, but fortunately, there seems to be not a consensus on that. So we're going to have to be creative in the transfer market and use Unai's coaching skills. Really, as much as I'd love to say it. That being said, I've joked about this in the past. If we sell the McGregor statue for £5 billion to Itar Ross, whatever they're called, then I'll take that. I'm sure they've got ideas and stuff to do. And this has been an often taught thing, I think, in fans forums as well, in fan consultations that you're nobbling the fans with ticket price increases. Well, you could be doing the naming rights on the ground or the training ground or sending the women's team. There's obviously routes they could go down to do that before you just do the thing, which happens a lot later, which is put the prices up. So, yeah, not as simple as I think. Although I do agree with the principle of the point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there are a couple of things that we'll touch on in a bit that probably Aston Villa and other teams can do to circumvent PSR, because that ruling got overturned, didn't it, about sort of to do with assets being sold to companies linked to the clubs or something like that. So it didn't get through in terms of what Chelsea did with the women's team. So that's an interesting thing to look at. But the point about Man United, Man City, one or two other clubs is that Chelsea, even they were able to take advantage of rules being relaxed before they were tightened, and then they've ended up going on to huge successes. Villa had an owner in sort of at that time where Man City were getting bigger, with Randy Lerner, who was at the point we were at the point of where our wages to turnover ratio was extremely high, and Martin O'Neill wanted to push it that little bit further. Probably in hindsight, probably couldn't, but maybe needed an Iteros or an investment bank or an investment company to come in and pump more money in, and that might have been Aston Villa benefiting from that pump injection of cash, but unfortunately we didn't have that, and we've had to go with what we've got now. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? You can only go with what's happening at the time and what the rules are at the time. And yes, all these accountants, all these executives will be trying to figure out loopholes on how to bend the rules. And also we've got saleable assets, as we've said before. Like, gone are the days where we only had Jack Grealish who we could sell, and that was potentially a cut price, £25 million to Tottenham. We've now, and we were scratching around for free transfers or loan players. Now we've got players who could fetch 100 million, or players that we can make 60, 70 million profit on. So it's a completely different Aston Villa, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is, and it's I don't think it's as cut and dried as some people think it is. I think there's some people that are. I understand the realism. You've got to go look at the end of the season and what happened to see that probably the realistic people are the ones that were effectively correct, and the ones that were all overly optimistic were the ones that were incorrect this time. And I think we've got. I think Sharik made a great comment earlier on about if you were going to bring it up at some point, but about the realism of what we can do basically.
Yeah.
That being said, there's a lot of great examples of teams that overachieve, whether that's they just get the squad playing really well, there's a style of play. there's creativity. We've seen transfers like a Morgan Rogers for peanuts basically come in and obviously do what he's done. Watkins, when you consider the goal return over the last few years, what we paid for him is an absolute steal. Whatever you think of Watkins, I think you can't argue with that. The goals and assists contributions. So there's been a lot of those. Tielemans on a free. You can obviously do the deals. Yeah, sure, your wages go up, and our wages are fairly hefty, so we've got to be careful of that.
Yeah.
So we have to have that optimism that we can do stuff, but the game is just screwed, isn't it? Really, if you look at what's happening, if you look at the situation around Man City and all the charges, and it's still not sorted out. Who knows how long it's going to go on for? It's still really, really up in the air. And it just feels, even though it might not be cut and dried, and they might well win the case because it's not been dealt with. There's the level of unfairness that we see. They have a bad season, Man City. All of a sudden, in the summer, wow, they've just gone and splurged loads of cash on Nori, on Cherki, etc., etc. So they're doing things in the transfer market. I think the one thing I think Villa fans will look at is you see that happening there. You see Liverpool getting Wirtz and obviously Frimpong. You see Arsenal look like they're going to get Zubimendi, who's a proper player. And all of a sudden you're thinking these three teams ahead of us are really, really strengthening now in terms of key positions. And are you going to get left behind? Newcastle with Champions League money, I'm sure they're going to probably do a bit of business. So,
although they seem in a bit of not a mess, I would say, but a little bit of a tricky situation in that their director of football, Paul Mitchell, was always planned to leave at the end of the month, I think, end of June. But I think he's actually left now. But then there's a bit of confusion as who's in charge of the transfers. Is it been passed on to another guy who was sort of his, Paul Mitchell was managing him. He's now taken that position, or is it still Paul Mitchell? So there's a bit of uncertainty about how they're going to do with their transfers. But yeah, absolutely. Like, they've got Champions League football. Tottenham have got Champions League football, new manager. So yeah, football never stands still, does it? It never stands still. And that's the issue. I mean, just quickly, I know David Houghton's in the chat. I know with the first question is questions from viewers. So it was about PSR and finances, but we won't just talk about that. We'll
move on. Don't worry, David.
We're going to talk transfers. But just a quick one, because as I said, I don't think the profit and sustainability is that much of an issue for Aston Villa in the sense of, like, yeah, we might not be able to go and spend like 100 million if we don't do a couple of creative things or sell a couple of players, in terms of like the losses that we could maybe accrue. But we might not want to sign too many new players. That's the other point. I think the key point is that's the wages situation. But can you see a likely scenario where we do this kind of switch of selling the women's team for 150 million pounds, or the stadium renaming in the next sort of, so the women's team gets sold this season, then the stadium rights get sold for next season? Can you see us doing something like that?
If it's within the rules, I could see us doing whatever's possible, really. I mean, whatever it takes. I think Christos said it earlier on really well. Sell the kiosks, sell the McGregor statue, sell the gates, sell everything, sell the band that play on the fan park on the day of the game, whatever. Just sell what you can sell. Whatever's within the rules, play the game that the others are playing. The others are playing really well and have been playing really well for a long time. I just think that you've got to do whatever you've got to do to be competitive. Of course, if alongside that you spot gems and you make money on them and you develop, the one thing we're doing really well. Look how good our youth team did last season. That is, if you want to look at it really cynically, obviously winning the league, winning the FA Youth Cup, etc., etc. What you're really doing there is getting a conveyor belt of cash, aren't you, coming at some point in the future? Yes, sure, some of them won't make it to the top level, but even if you get a few of them through to Championship, League One, you might get a couple that maybe make it big. All of a sudden, you've really added to the coffers there. So that's another route, isn't it? It's as cynical as it sounds. I agree with David's sentiments entirely.
Yeah. We'll end it. We'll end the conversation there about PSR.
I'm even talking about selling young players. I always wanted to see the young players come through. And
We've said this so many times. It's had such a negative effect on so many points that I just don't think they foresaw. I don't think that they foresaw clubs just trading younger players and stockpiling younger players in their academies just to make money to bring through for first team. I just don't think that they foresaw that, and unfortunately, that's what's happened. But just touching on the kind of the worries about all of this, because I guess the turnover that Aston Villa are going to miss out on for not qualifying for the Champions League. Sharik makes a good point, and he knows that we are realists on this channel as much as we are optimistic. But when I said that football doesn't stand still, does it feel like that a little bit? Like, I know it's difficult to say right now with kind of no the transfers or players in sort of uncertain situations, but does it feel like we missed a massive opportunity last season by not qualifying for the Champions League, and now we are potentially behind Newcastle, Spurs, Man United? How do you feel about that?
I'm not too bad about Spurs and Man United, really. I know that Man United bought Cunha in the link with a few players, but I still think our squad's going to be better than theirs next season based on what I saw last season. I don't think they can make that many changes, and even if they do, will they all integrate that quickly? I hear the point around Newcastle. I hear the point around Chelsea. Liverpool, Arsenal. Yeah, I think it's a valid point. I said a lot last season. What it would do for this club to finish back-to-back seasons Champions League, and it was in hindsight a season of massive missed opportunities. It gives you some comfort to know you've lost to the winners of both the FA Cup and the Champions League in the latter stages, of the competition, but still opportunities for the team to win a trophy. And we did everything we had to do. Some of those wins against Brighton, the Bournemouth one, the Forest one, and that run in the Newcastle one, games that were really difficult games on paper. We kept churning out results. We conceded a sloppy goal to Man City. That cost us. Disassi getting skinned, and I still think when you look at that goal at the back post, Martinez, Torres, whoever it was, I still think there was just poor indecisiveness. But you could go through the whole season. That Bournemouth header, the 97th minute, that cost us. All of these situations, you could have, should have, would have. There's a reality now that we have to play a little bit of catch up, but in the same token, we saw Newcastle drop out the Champions League and then get back into the year after and win a trophy. We've seen Crystal Palace win a trophy. They've not been in Europe that I can remember. So if you look at the situation,
there might not be.
Yeah, there might not be. If you've got a coach like Unai and you've got the bones of a really, really good squad, let's be clear. I know they flattered to deceive at times, but we had some great wins last season. If you get a bit more consistency, maybe not concede. I do think as well the start of the season was a bit of an anomaly. You're not going to concede your first goal on target 17, 18 times again.
Yeah, well, this brings me to real good segue there about defensively, because Belgian Villains came in with a few questions as well. Said Aston Villa have conceded 112 goals in the last two Premier League seasons combined. What's the issue?
Is the issue, and I'm going to say it now, is the issue Pau Torres?
It's not Pau Torres by himself, because he's been part of a team that finished fourth.
Yeah, but compare him to Mings. I love
Mings.
Torres.
The 14 games that he played in the Premier League was a completely different Ming. Like, it had a completely different complexion of the defense than at times when Torres was in there.
Yeah,
it's probably a combination of things. Like, is the screening in front of the defense good enough? Like, we love what Yuri Tielemans does. Like, he's been a phenomenal player, and we love what Kamara does, but has Kamara sometimes been a little bit weak in that midfield? Has Onana, yes, towards the end of the season came back, but has that protection in front of the back four been quite enough? Have we suffered from different centre-back partnerships? Has Emi Martinez been as sharp as he has been previously? These are all things that you could probably point to. We moved away a little bit as well from the season that we finished in the Conference League and we went on that great run. Look at how we played away from home. We sometimes we stunk the place out away from home,
but we got the results.
We got wins. Yeah.
Well, Rich, that's my point when I sort of said Torres was the style of play when you're playing a more progressive high line, suits you with someone like Torres. Absolutely does.
Yeah.
The style of play when you're back to the wall with Torres. Look, I like Torres as a progressive centre back. I don't think he's a particularly great defensive centre back compared to others in the league. And the other point to add is that are our fullbacks defensively good enough? Are they?
Mm,
Are they?
yeah.
You know, they're not, certainly on Cash's perspective, offensively good enough, but are they defensively good enough? You know, did they get beaten too many times, too many balls in the box? I think Konza was off it a little bit last season. I do think it was a combination of, you know, bad form, bad luck. Oh, get the violins out, Kev. Bad luck, but you know, you consider your first shot on targets loads.
Is that a
Martin,
mentality thing though?
Martinez is off it. Konza's off it. Yeah, maybe it is. The fact that we're all crying out for Mings when a couple of years ago I'm saying Mings was finished. I've just got to let the dog out because he's hot. The fact everyone's crying out for Mings says a hell of a lot, I think.
Yeah, and also what I would say is that, and I've talked about this a couple of times on this pod and various other pods, is I feel like there's a bit of a renaissance for the old school centre back, and I think there's going to be a renaissance for the old school centre forward coming up very soon.
Yeah,
I feel like the Mings came back into play so importantly about blocking crosses, heading the ball clear, no nonsense, because teams have worked out how to press against the teams that are playing out from the back. So now it's kind of all switched to, right, you play a couple of passes across the back. If you can't get through like a PSG can or a Man City can at their peak, then what you need to do is play the percentages almost again and put it in the channels, or get it, you know, just no nonsense basically. And that's why kind of Mings was like, just get the ball away from the goal as much as you can, as best as you can, and we won't concede. Don't mess about with it in and around your box, and just communicate to the rest of your defense. And that's what I think someone like Pau Torres, and if it is going to be Torres and Konsa that are the number one centre back partnership, then they need to work together better, and Konsa needs to probably take that leadership role.
yeah.
Let me just quickly go into some comments, and then if you want to finish up on that point. But Engine number 9 says Mings and Konsa wish Mings was 2 years younger. Gary said our defense settled down. David Houghton said we seem to have moved away from the high line defending, which we were really good at. Should we not go back to that? I guess it depends who you're playing at the back, doesn't it? Like we have sometimes suffered from a bit of a lack of pace. And that's one of the interesting ones. Steven said no real voice at the back unless Mings plays.
Yep.
K22 says Kamara's injuries. John says Cash has been a bit negative too many times. Peter said, for me, it's how we expect our fullbacks to play as high wingers. I think that comes into it, doesn't it? If fullbacks are pushing right up, if one of the other midfielders goes up as well, you've kind of only left with 3 players at the back. So that could be an issue. Adamski says we haven't been investing in the defense properly. Gary said he thinks we need 4 in and 4 out. Sharik says he's never seen a defender such as Torres be so bad at defending but gets so many excuses. We have a striker whose weakest aspect is finishing and a defender whose weakest attribute is tackling. Man, it's not a bad point, because whenever Pau Torres, we wince every time Pau Torres is selected against a physical centre forward a la Jean-Philippe Mateta. And you shouldn't really do that, should you?
No, you should. I mean, look, we all have seen the positive things that Pau Torres can do. You know, the ball to John Duran against Bayern Munich. You know, some of the progressive passing and running out of defence. You know, and the yards. You know, all those stats are brilliant. And obviously, Emery loves him as a player. He's had him twice. But every single time we play a team and Mings is available and he plays Torres instead, and something goes wrong in that game, everyone's going, "Told you so, told you so, told you so." That isn't going to go away. And I still think that with fitness, fitness permitting, that Ming should start because I think the stats there in terms of points, in terms of clean sheets, in terms of Curry, no worries. In terms of all of that, he's better when Mings is in the team. That's just facts. You made some great points earlier, though. You know, Martinez not where he's been at. Certainly, the screen in the front of the defense. Yeah, we all love Kamara. We did Anana do enough in the early part of the season in terms of fitness and availability? We expect a bit more. Tielemans isn't the most gets about the pitch. Obviously, he's been brilliant for us but he's not the most robust defensive player, is he, in terms of some of the players that are out there? Do we get knocked off the ball a bit easy sometimes? Do we turn it over a bit too much sometimes? We do. I think this is a combination of factors, really.
The other thing as well is, look, you can't just blame it all on the defence as well. We talked about Watkins and his missed chances in front of goal at times. We talked about Morgan Rogers with his giving away the ball in key areas, especially if we've committed men forward and then a ball gets cut out and all of a sudden you're put under pressure. And again, strikers, forward players play such an important part in the whole team in terms of how the team can progress up the pitch. If your striker doesn't hold the ball up in the first 10 passes, 50, 60% of the time, then your defense is just going to drop deeper and deeper. And the gap between your midfield, the defense and midfield is that much bigger. And your gap between the midfield and attack is so much bigger because obviously they don't want to get out because they think the ball's going to come straight back to them. So that in turn creates a problem. So then the opposition has much more space to run into and can get momentum when they're attacking your defense. So it's not just down to the defense. Like if we look at all the frustrating times we've had this season, it's been Morgan Rogers in a great position, giving the ball away. Yes, we know how many brilliant things he's done. On that right-hand side, at the start of the season, Leon Bailey falling over, giving the ball away. Jaden Philogene not doing anything. We've had Ollie Watkins missing key chances, which again puts pressure on the defense because then they've got to make sure that they don't concede. Or we've had, poor crosses, whatever it might be. So that's an issue as well, because if you know that your striker, your striker's not going to put away chances, that automatically puts increasing pressure on the defense to make sure they don't make a mistake.
Yeah, mate. I think this whole debate is actually quite depressing, isn't it, when you think about it? Because but
equally, we finished sixth, got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and got to semi-final of the FA Cup. So it's not a bad thing. It's just when you look at the goals conceded, it does.
I'm thinking about it as soon as you raised it, like the stat at the start about the goals conceded. K22M is not very happy in the chat.
No, I'm not saying Pau Torres is a bad player in any way, shape, or form. It's not saying that at all. Not saying that we've got bad players. It's just, could it be a mindset thing? Christos says we lack aggression and physicality. Players need to play better. They need to take pride in defending, act instead of react. And, I was really pleased in that Bournemouth game where we just didn't give a monkeys about like who we were playing against. And Mings was like putting his body in front, and that kid got a fractured jaw. Good, like he was the one putting it about. Then Onana was shrugging players off, and we were like putting ourselves about. And I was thinking it's about time we did that.
Yeah.
Like Crystal Palace absolutely physically dominated us in all those games, and that's what made me so disappointed against Manchester United, is that they matched us man for man, and we couldn't step up to impose ourselves on the game. We kind of shrunk in the game, and that's the disappointing thing for me, that I'd like to see us do more next season. And sometimes Unai Emery, the manager, you can't make players do that. You can't give players that fire. And that's the thing that Mings does a little bit. He gives players that fire, whether it be by encouragement or by shouting at them. And, it sums up where we are now with when Jude Bellingham's getting criticised for being a bit intimidating to his own teammates. I know we're going slightly off topic here, but can you imagine Roy Keane in the dressing room? Imagine Roy Keane in training if you were doing doggies and you were running up and touching the cone and running back and sprint. If you didn't sprint to the cone and touch it, can you imagine what Roy Keane would have said to you just for not touching the cone in a training drill, let alone if you made a mistake in a match? And now we're having to go because players can't handle it because someone has a bit of a go at them in an international football match.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, Roy Keane quote, isn't it? Babies, but a baby. Whatever you think of Villa, right? Whether you think Pau Torres is the greatest defender in the world, the worst defender in the world, it is irrefutable for me. Somebody might refute this point and say maybe it's not, but it's irrefutable that there's many times we are soft, and there's many times we are easy to play against, and and in critical moments, and this is, I think, you cannot deny this fact, right? In key games in the last few seasons, and this Emery team, we have not turned up again when in key games. Olympiacos home and away semi-final. Obviously the FA Cup semi. The Man United game, last game of the season, must win. Now I hear you saying we beat Brighton when we need to beat Brighton to qualify. I hear you. And obviously we've won big games, but I think when the pressure's cranked up on this team,
Sheffield United to go top of the league at home.
Perfect example. When the physical or mental pressure's cranked on the team, we don't see enough, I think, of that. And look, it's been an absolutely brilliant ride under Unai. We're looking at how we can improve. Clearly, it's not all perfect, but I also think now it would be remiss of us to be like, it's all going to be great. Don't worry about it. We'll forget everything previously happened. We are weak, and Pau Torres is the weaker of the two left centre backs. He is, and Carlos was the weaker of the two right centre backs. So, unfortunately, it has to be discussed, doesn't it?
Sharik is going in on Pau Torres. The £2 super chat. Thank you, mate. Is Pau's passing even that amazing? It's a myth.
Is his mate in the chat? Has he blocked him in the chat? I don't know what's going on. Was he blocked us?
I think
it's just a debate. It's just a debate.
Yeah. I think his passing is pretty good. I don't know if it's a myth. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but would I prefer a defender who was strong in the tackle and headed and kicked it away and was physical over someone who can pick out passes and be progressive in that way, but isn't as strong as a defender? Then I'll take the defender every time.
If we're playing next season, right, and the first game up is Wolves away, would you rather have Pau Torres alongside Konza or Ben Mee?
Or you're going to say Tyrone Mings. I'd have Tyrone Mings every time. I wouldn't have Ben Mee.
Prime Gareth McCauley, or
probably prime Gareth McCauley. Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah. No nonsense. Yeah.
No nonsense. That's what I'm going to say. I was going to say S House, but don't want to get told off by YouTube. But no nonsense. Not particularly great at football, but bosh. No, I'd rather have Pau Torres over Ben Mee, of course.
We never forgive him. Not
Pau
for
Torres
what he did to Wesley.
Here's a phrase: Pau Torres is better than me. Yeah, he is.
Yay.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because you criticise any players. You criticise Yuri, you criticise McGinn, Watkins. You're going to get someone saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You're all idiots. Fan base is mental, deluded. Just got to talk about it, ain't you?
Yeah, of course, mate.
Just having a chat.
It is. Bearing the gun, a defender's first job is to defend. Exactly. Staying on defenders, Nick, who does our intros, our wonderful intros, has got a question, and interested to hear from us. So he says, I'd be interested to hear from you guys on the Digne rumours. Do you think Maatsen is good enough defensively, on the defence, to be our first choice left back?
It's a good question. I mean, he's young. He's can we keep saying this? Would he be 44? And I'm saying he's young. I think he probably is. I think towards the end of the season, he played more and more. I think he's had this kind of classic thing under Emery where, same with Yuri, where you kind of find your feet in the team. You look towards the end of the season, you've got Onana playing more. Obviously, Yuri really come through this season, hasn't he, after that first season? Maatsen playing more. Rodgers obviously got into the team more and more after he joined in January, the year before. Look, if you look at what he does for Holland sometimes, he's fantastic. He was brilliant the season before, obviously getting to the Champions League team of the season, getting to the final. He's not very big, is he? He's not very big, and there are times when he does have stinkers in defence, but it's also very, very good going forward. I don't know, but are you going to get better than Digne or Maatsen in that left back position?
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because we all thought Matson would come in and that would be it for Luca Dean, and he's responded so well. So particularly that first 6-7 months of the season, he was excellent, and you know he's actually turned into a fantastic buy for us and a fantastic player for us. When you look at the
Yeah.
consistency and the levels that he's been able to produce, got himself back in the French team as well, which is no mean feat as well. So I think were we not in the position with the wage bill, and also we're in a bit of a transition period. I know we were talking in our group chat around the age of some of the players, and they get into that sort of level where they might start to plateau without being sort of ageist, if you like. But Dean is 31.
Yeah, I'm just checking now. Nearly
Watkins is
32.
30. McGinn's 30. You know, we've got other players who are kind of getting to that age. Obviously, Martinez is a goalkeeper, but is still at 30. Mings is 32. He's just signed a new deal. So unless like Dean is going to sign a cut price contract, then I think we're in a position where we probably do have to let him go. And I guess it is on then Matson to be that number one left back, because we're not going to, for the money we paid for him, we're not going to bring in another left back at, upwards of 30, 35 million, are we?
Yeah, but then I wouldn't be surprised if something crazy happens. I didn't think we would be spending 50 million on a Nana.
Well, yeah. I just
So
don't know if left back will be the position that will do it.
yeah,
But
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. PF Sports says no, he doesn't think Matson is good enough. Adamski does think Matson's good enough. Michael says no. Gary said we've got that Turkish lad. Can he play left back, or is he more centre back?
I think he can play left. I thought
Okay.
it was more centre back. I think he can, yeah, but I'll be
Yeah.
surprised if it's a bit soon for him. Look at this fan base. Oh, no one can make a decision. They're all
I know. Yeah. Well, this is it, isn't it? John says he's young and Emery can teach him. Does it depend on the system? Says Bear in the Garden. It definitely does. Sharik says Matson does have the potential to improve his position, and we have to stick with him, especially for the price we pay. Emery's Kingdom of Aston, 150 years, 1874, the Aston Villa. I love that name. I love that name every time. Dini over Matson, he wasn't at it at United at all. PF says Matson is better as a winger than a left back. And yeah, I think it's a little bit mixed, to be fair. Engine number, that's Marlon. Is he mean Matson? Engine I said Matson was great in the game.
I think he means Marlon for Holland.
Oh, right. Fair enough. Yes.
He was.
Yes. Yeah. And Gary said, average age 29. He thinks it's too old. I think that's what I think the squad average age is something like 26, but towards the end of the season with Asensio as well, obviously he's not our player, but it was creaking up to that 29, 30 age. So yeah, it's interesting. And on that point, Belgian Villains asked, should we get more youth players involved in the first team setup?
But who? Who's good enough?
How do you know they're good enough until you give them a chance?
Yeah, but that's like saying, why don't we just pick 5 people on the podcast chat and send them down with Bodymore Heath? Well, I'm going for it now. John the Belching guy, get yourself to Bodymore Heath. Peter Smith, Mr. Green, you there, son? You made it. Rachel, get yourself across, and Adamski, just because it'd be a pain in the arse for you to get there.
I guess to round up the point. Okay, so you've got Lamar Bogard, who played some games, showed some promise. You've got what would be classed as the all-conquering under-18 side with Tristan Rowe at right back, who's looking at championship clubs are looking at him. You've got, I guess, a Louis Barry who's going to be invited to pre-season training. You've got Hemmings in that midfield. You've got Rory Wilson, who's signed a new contract. You've got this Redmond, who's 18, who's been signed. You've got Ashkan, who's 18, who's been signed. So would any of those players be worthy of giving a shot to? Or are we at too high a level to risk playing those players?
I agree with Lee Evans. I trust the staff know if someone is good enough. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's the step up to Premier League and European football is huge. You know, you look at that. I always think of the example of someone like Gary Gardner. Gary Gardner was the second coming of Christ when he came through. You know, he got a hat trick, didn't he? The next year, and he was going to be the boy, absolute. And don't get me wrong, he had a good career, playing the Premier League for Villa, played a lot for obviously Blues, but the level we thought he was going to get to, you know, that team, obviously that Grealish came through, and I mean, who made it big?
Mm.
You know, this is the thing. You know, you look at that team
So
that,
difficult.
yeah,
And there's a lot of luck involved. I mean, you know, Kane Kessler-Hayden had a great season at Preston in the Championship, swept the board with awards. We're going to sell him.
mm, yeah, Chukwuemeka's not done much, has he, since he left Villa?
He's at
You know,
Dortmund now, isn't he?
yeah, hasn't really done much, has he? You know,
No.
Louis Barry's obviously looked pretty good in League Two, then League One, got an injury in the Championship. But the point is, none of these players are going on to phenomenal. I mean, let's see what happens with Kellyman, highly rated, and you know, let's see what
Well,
all of these players. I love the
this is the
idea of
thing
it.
as well. Yeah, this is the thing as well. Adam says Bogart's been phased out a little bit too. And with all due respect, now maybe it is PSR, pure profit, etc., but there's been Villa fans that are saying, do you know what? We might need to sell Jacob Ramsey.
Mm, yeah, and to be fair to Bogart as well, like I think he did okay, didn't he? He did pretty well in some of the games, but once the squad got back to full fitness, he wasn't going to get in there in the match day squad. He just wasn't good enough. I think he was a bit nervy. Look, absolutely no doubt he's got ability, and obviously Unai trusted him in a lot of matches. But we have to believe that the management structure that are going to play people if they're good enough. I think the jealousy comes with the club. Obviously, when you see teams like Liverpool bringing in youth players, and you know, obviously Man City. Look at that O'Reilly they've got. Looks an absolute world beater. You know, and he's obviously a young kid, and surely we've got one of our own there. Is it a Ben Broggio? Is it, you know,
Yeah,
who's it going to be?
yeah.
But
And a lot of the time, it still comes about by luck. A lot of the time, it comes about by luck. And does that player come in and grab the opportunity with both hands? Like, it doesn't matter. We could go back 20, 25 years. It's still the same situation. The manager gets backed into a corner because he's got an injury crisis. He puts a young lad on, a la someone like Marcus Rashford. He had to play him because he had a striker crisis, and he comes in and scores a couple of goals, and then the rest is history. That's generally what happens with young players, isn't it? Like, you know, you've got a crisis at fullback, and the young kid comes in on at right back, and he all of a sudden does brilliantly, and then he's in the first team. Like, it's so much to do with that still. Yes, you get the odd one who's coming through and training with the first team and get and progresses through, and then is the next cab on the rank. But a lot of the time, it's just, right, you're in, son. Take your chance, and then it's up to them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, we'd all love to see you know, another Grealish come through, wouldn't we? I think
Yeah.
our only wish to get a local lad is if Grealish comes back. Let's not talk about that. And you know, Jacob Ramsey's obviously, you know, he's one of our own, isn't he? But um,
Where do you
I
stand
don't.
on the Ramsey situation? Would you sell him?
The problem with Ramsey for me is, oh God, I feel like I'm being like, everyone's like, where's Kev gone? He's only really positive. They knocked it out of me at the end of the season. The Bumbleclots. Um, yeah, the problem with Ramsey for me is quite simple. It's goals and assists, and there's just not enough. And for an attacking player, he does not get enough goal contributions. But when he's on it, and he's been on it at times in his career before been hampered by injuries, I've loved watching him play. And he's the closest to Grealish that we've had, I think, genuinely, because it's a different style of like getting forward than a Rodgers. He's more of a, you know, smash everything out of the way. Rodgers is basically. Um, but he needs to contribute more goals. And I still have part of me thinks, you know, if he can get a run of fitness and a run of, you know, game time, then he can start doing some stuff. But he's at that age now where he's really got to start to contribute more. That's another point for us in terms of the club. Did we get enough goals from a Tielemans, from a McGinn, from a Bailey, from a Jacob Ramsey when they played? You know, outside of Watkins and obviously Duran at the start of the season, it was Rodgers contributed a few, but other than that, wasn't a fat lot really going on goals wise.
Yeah. This is a question for you, and I might pose this on X, but I've really wanted to ask this. Right. If we were not to sign anyone and we didn't lose any players, where do you think we would finish next season?
We're keeping the loan players. Curveball.
Let's say no,
Okay.
because they're not our players.
Okay, so basically
because we can't. We'd have to sign them, so you can't sign anyone. We don't sign anyone. We don't lose anyone.
So no Rashford, no Asensio, no
Disassi.
But
Marlon, we've signed him, so we've got Marlon.
Yeah, Garcia.
You've got Ramsey. You've got Garcia. You've got Bailey. Still, you've got Watkins. You've got McGinn, Rogers, Onana, Tielemans, Kamara. Don't lose Kamara.
8th.
Yeah.
Good podcast, isn't it? Silent.
Silent. No, it's just interesting.
7th, 8th. I don't think that.
So the reason I asked that is because I was on the Hulk cast with Pete and Cole and Neil, and we were saying how we're excited for what we can bring in. But the reason I say that is because sometimes we get carried away with needing new players, needing new signings, needing this, needing that. But sometimes you kind of forget that the players that you've had, the year of experience that they've got, and the kind of the disappointment and the elation that they've experienced the previous season might stand them in good stead. So the fact that they took PSG so close, the fact that they were so disappointing in the semi-final of the FA Cup, the fact that they lost it, at the end against Man United, maybe they're kind of burning from that experience. Maybe they can use that in the bank to be like, look, we don't want to feel that again. And maybe another season of improvement for Onana, a season of improvement for Maatsen, a season of improvement for Marlon, of getting used to Unai Emery's methods will make them feel like new signings.
I think you make a valid point, actually, and there's been a lot of chat. Adamski, to give him his credit, been calling Marlon and saying, he's going to be a world beater, and I do think we'll see a lot more from him next season. And you're absolutely right, and you could well see more from Maatsen, from Onana, like we said. Who knows? Garcia might play more. The flip of the argument is, and the reason why I think it could be even outside of Europe potentially with my prediction, because I don't know how much better Cash he's getting and Bailey's getting, and I don't know how much younger. Well, I know how much younger. None of them are getting any younger. So the ones that are 30, 31, 32, are obviously, not in their peak years. And let's be clear, and this is the icing on top of my point, we needed to make a lot of reinforcements, to bring in a lot of reinforcements in January to give ourselves a chance at the end of the season, because that squad up to January was just not good enough. We were way off it. We were way off it in terms of the league, way off it in terms of I know we've got some good results in Europe. And Emery had to have that conversation, didn't he, with the squad and say, look, I'm going to have to bring reinforcements in, of which they made. Disassi obviously had his moments. Rashford and Asensio obviously made a big impact as well. That was the impetus that we needed. So I think without that, I think you look at the teams. Chelsea, I think, will stay up there. Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City will. Then you've got to look at Newcastle. Then you've got all the other teams that are going to be knocking on that door. And you'd like to think 6 probably at least.
Well, the thing is, Newcastle didn't make any signings, and they ended up finishing in the Champions League. Obviously, they didn't have Champions League football to worry about, but Newcastle didn't make any signings for last season.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe I've been a bit negative with 8th, but
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I don't know, but it's interesting to look at other clubs and seeing what they're doing, because also if you rewind back to last season, the last pre-season, apparently West Ham won the transfer window, and look what happened to them.
Yeah.
So and what I would say as well is that players coming into the season off the back of last season's Euros, it was very disjointed, and we didn't have a great pre-season, did we? Because Unai wanted to get rid of a couple of players. They wanted to get a couple of other players in. It didn't happen. Martinez came back late. Watkins came back late and slightly injured. And there was other players that were kind of mishmash. So maybe a full pre-season, a full rest period might stand them in good stead. I'm just saying, like, because I don't know if we'll sign loads of players. I really don't. And I don't know whether we need them. That's my
I think we need some
point.
players.
I know we need certain positions, but I don't know if we need loads of players. Obviously, it depends on who leaves. It depends on who leaves, right? If your goalkeeper leaves, you need a number one goalkeeper. If your striker leaves, you need a number one striker. I fully understand
but
that.
they're replacements, aren't they? At the moment,
Yeah.
Martinez and Watkins are there.
Yeah.
And I could see him being happy with Watkins and Marlon as a front two in terms of his options. You
Yeah.
don't have, you don't have loads of strikers just kicking around. Is he going to be happy with, let's say they don't leave, with Bailey on the right, or you playing a Rodgers or a McGinn or someone in a bit of a hybrid role?
He needs a winger. He needs a wide man. He 100% needs a wide man. And absolutely. He said it. He said before the end of the season, Ross Barkley had a bit of frustrating time of injury, and is expecting him to play a big part in the season next season. Now, is that to keep his interest? Is that to make sure he goes off and continues to train throughout the summer? There's probably a little bit of that there, but we were saying how impressed we were with Ross Barkley in the first half of the season. So, that's another player that we didn't really benefit from towards the back end of the season.
Good point. I was really excited when we signed him. He was brilliant for Luton the year before, so I was really excited. And he's still not, he's not that old, so he can still contribute. But look, we need a winger. We need a number 10, don't we?
And we need an upgrade at right back. We definitely
do.
Yeah.
Let's see what. And you could argue we need a centre half as well.
Well, we've had a massive debate about the centre half, so we definitely do. Yeah.
And we need 2 goalies. And we need a new striker.
There we go. And then we just Ramsey need a whole new team. We'll get relegated. We'll get relegated if we don't sign anyone.
You said the screening for the defence weren't good enough, so we need a couple of sixes.
Kev, engine number 9 was like, "Oh, I can't wait for Kev to get on this pod. He's going to be so positive."
I joke. We don't need total. I just all through the podcast we've mentioned all the positions, so clearly there's a bit of doubt, isn't there?
Yeah, anyway. Yeah. Adamski said we'd finish in the same place, so top 6. Michael says we'd finish 4th, so he's very positive. Adam agrees with you. Kev says 8th. Others are improving. Even Spurs might be up there next season. Sharik says 10th or 11th. Rod says we would.
Sharik said 1011th.
Yeah, we've been back into step 7. Rod Humble said we would have a defensive injury crisis again, so 6th. Well, I think I'd take that 6th. Steven says 6th. No Olsen. Which teams will improve?
Spurs, Man United, West Ham probably will improve. I think Forest will do well to do that well again. You could almost see Brentford will probably go backwards with losing Frank. I'd imagine Brighton might kick on a bit more as well. Palace I think will improve in the league form. Yeah, who knows? I don't see any of this coming through. Spurs and Man United are the ones, particularly with like Spurs having European Champions League football, and Man United similarly. Who cares whether they've got no money and everything's screwed? They're just going to keep spending money, whilst sacking all the staff.
Yeah,
it can't be any worse than last season. I still don't think they'll finish ahead of us, but I think they'll be better.
Yes. Well, we'll see. We will see. Let's get into a couple of questions. Chris says, "Do you think Barrenechea has a Villa future?"
My heart says absolutely yes. He's been, from the highlights reel I've seen on YouTube, doing great things, hasn't he? In his spell in Spain, but I don't know whether we sell him and get the cash in. I honestly, it's a toss of a coin for me. I think he's got a real bright future. He's got a lot of suitors, really, really highly, sought after. Great age, looks technically great. Looks like he's got a real high ceiling. But is he going to get in our team right now? And if he's not going to get in our team right now, will they take the cash on him? Sad to say, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, that's another play. If we didn't make any signings and didn't sell anyone, who might come in and challenge?
Yeah.
So
don't forget Dobbin as well.
Oh yeah, we can't forget him.
Illing Jr.
Yeah.
He's at the
under 21 championships,
squad, aren't they?
Yeah. Sharik, I've got your question started. I'm going to save it till the end, James. But it says, why can't we improve? Yeah, exactly. You know, players are at an age. Onana's 22, Matson's 22, 23. Morgan Rogers is 22 or 23 maybe. Ramsey's 24. So they're still at an age where they can improve. So Garcia's 21. So, you know, there's plenty of improvement still there with some of the players. Absolutely. Looking ahead a little bit, Sharik says, what has to be the aim next season? And what would be failure? But let's talk about aims. What do you think has to be the aim next season?
What do I want? What do I think is realistic? What do I think we'll do? Kind of all separate questions for me, really, because it really depends on who we bring in and who goes out and how we deal with the finances. Because if we can strengthen in wide positions and we can strengthen in right back, then I think on our day we could beat anybody. You know, and you know, let's get the
home
optimistic
is
glasses
still
on now.
yeah. Home is still if we can keep Villa Park still a fortress, then you've got one half of the fixture sorted. You just got to be a bit more difficult to beat away from home. Pick up some better results away from home.
Yeah, let's go back to the high line and being real difficult to play against away from home, and we've got a chance of winning the league. You know, the home form it's been absolutely brilliant. To answer the question directly, Sharik, though, just some silverware.
Yeah.
Europa League, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, preferably, you know, the FA Cup, then Europa
Would you
League.
take a Spurs season?
If you said to me now, we'll finish 17th, but we'll win the Europa League, I would take it in a heartbeat. 100%. Who gives two hoots about the league if we win a trophy? I know it would be horrible. Everyone's been on our back. Emery would be getting again in the press. The fan base would turn on Emery. But do you know what? To get that moment to win that trophy, and then you'd take it. I'd take us getting relegated to win a trophy. Because the way it's going, I'll be dead. I won't see us win a trophy. So, like, give me something. No, I mean, I hope it's not a Spurs season. Just some kind of silverware. Then the next question is, I'm going to pose a question now. Would we rather finish in the Champions League position next season or win a trophy? Oh,
What trophy?
Is it David earlier on who said, like, finance is killing football? He got into football for the love of football.
I know.
Oh, David, I'm really sorry. But
it's got to be a trophy for me. It's got to be a trophy.
Carabao Cup.
Well, yeah. I mean, being up here as well, being up here in Newcastle, all of their fans were like, I don't care where we finish in the season. Obviously, they managed to get Champions League football, but they literally did not care. Like, they were like, with the first trophy in 70 years.
Carabao Cup and finish 16th, right? Or finish 4th. It's a tricky one.
I think I'd still take the silverware, you know.
If it's FA Cup and Europa League. Can I just throw something in there, by the way? I've got a really good idea how we can maximise success next season before you go to James' question at the end. Stick with me on this one. Those of you who've got kids, or remember when you were kids yourself, or some might even have some young fans watching. You know, when you go to those like tournaments and you like play like multiple games on one day, you know, it's like my lads had a couple of tournaments recently. You play 3 or 4 group games. I've got an idea I want to propose. You know, Benedict, everyone else is messing with the rules. Why don't we have on the first day of the season a round robin where we play Man City, Man United, Wolves, Newcastle, and Palace? We do it on one day.
Just get them out of the way.
Everyone gets a medal at the end, you know, a couple of sandwiches. Get the minibus back, and it's done. And we can just get on with the rest of the season. You know, you'd have a bit of driving. You know, you'd probably go Molyneux first, and then I don't know. You have to get to Newcastle at the end, wouldn't you? But no, my hope is we get those games early on in the season.
Yeah,
so we can move on from them. But yeah, no, just a bit of fun there. Sorry, I've been.
You'd have your cool box, wouldn't you? In the middle.
Box. Yeah, you'd have some Capri Suns.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna brought a massive bag.
You'd have to get the St. John's ambulance there as well.
If it's like back, it was in my day. You know, they used to get the cartons of pop for 10p, and you'd bite the end off. Be cool.
Yeah.
I'm not using that straw. I'm not some kind of loser. I'm from Ward End in Birmingham. I'm biting the corner off. I'm sucking it through that. Yeah. I used to be able to get to the corner shop near me, right? You know, obviously, there was no pause on TV. You know, like the 3-minute advert break on Coronation Street, whatever. I could sprint to the shop when I was like, that's me running, the laptop shaking.
Fast
Get
slippers.
Get a 10p fast slip up, so rapid. Get a 10p mix up, get it back in time for the second half of Corrie. Yeah, what a life, what a life. And look at us now, hey, look at us now, sweating in a relegation top.
Micah, we'll get your question in, mate. The biggest name Villa will bring in this summer. He thinks it's going to be Baena or Xavi Simons. Do you think we're going to bring in a big name? Yeah, I think people have said Joe Felix in the chat.
Joe Felix or Jack Grealish. There you go.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with you. I think Grealish will go. Like that saga will rumble on right till the end of the window. I think they're going to try and keep as many options open as possible for him.
Yeah, when I'm seeing
I think it'll be a loan move.
When I'm seeing link with Everton and West Ham, I'm like, come on, he ain't playing wearing another claret blue.
Napoli, I think, is the latest club.
I hated the whole chat about Grealish for ages. He's he a busted flush? He's changed player. I've been thinking about it over my summer so far, and I'm all aboard the Grealish return train now. Woo, woo, let's go. Bring him home. Let's do it.
And talking about next season, actually, we've got nearly 300 in the chat. I haven't even mentioned hitting the likes, but please, guys, if you haven't already, please do hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, we're on X as well, so please do follow us at Villa Park Pod and follow Kev at KTAVFC as well, and spread the word of the channel on X. And help us on the road to 6,000 subscribers. We are very, very close, just over 200 away from the big 6K. So please do help support the channel. We've got loads of plans for next season as well. So be a part of our Villa Park Pod family. So on to next season. Fixtures are out on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Everyone's talking about who we're going to get. And you've mentioned your little football festival that unfortunately won't happen. But who do you think we're going to get first game of the season? Who do you want first game of the season? Probably two different teams.
I don't care, mate. I support Palace now.
Yeah. We get Palace at Selhurst Park. Come on, you Palace. Yeah.
I'm only on the pod because you asked me to come on. Otherwise, I'll be down the booze with me Palace mates. No, I genuinely would like us to get. Do you know what? I want us to start the season off with a win, so a home tie. I want us to get some of these horrible games out of the way, but it'd be good to have a horrible game following a big win. I'd like us to play a big team at home and beat them on the first day of the season. A Man United, a Man City, a Spurs, someone who's obviously a decent name. Yeah, I'd take that. Home game, start the season as you mean to go on and get. It's always good when you get a big scalp, isn't it, early in the season?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, give me a Liverpool at home on the first day of the season, and let's beat them.
Have we had a home opening game of the season since we came back up to the Prem? We were away at West Ham last season.
Yeah, we were away at Spurs. The first one back.
Spurs, the first one back.
Wasn't there a Bournemouth one, but that was the second game.
We were away at Watford, the first game of the Dean Smith season as well. We lost 3-2.
Horrible.
I'm trying to think if we've been at home on the first game of the season since we've come back. And sometimes the club requests it, don't they? Because sometimes if the grass and the groundsman wants it, sometimes they.
Yeah, Chris Brown and Guns N' Roses are still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Gary says Leeds away. He thinks we're going to get. John says Liverpool away. Rod says he wants Leeds at home, but he thinks we'll get Newcastle away. Engine number 9 says one of the 3 promoted teams at home in case Emmy is banned. And Crystal Palace, the stuff of nightmares. Yes. Geordie, a big scalp. 2 of those teams finished 15th, 17th. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean. I get. You know what I mean.
Yes,
it's a great point. Well, do you know what, Geordie? We went to Man United. And I was like, we're so much better than this.
Man U.
This shower. We'll turn them over. Villa, we've won 9 out of the last 10, whatever it was. We'll turn them over, whatever it was. And then actually, we played absolutely abject. So yeah, but fair point. Oh, Rich is paused. Rich, are you with us still? Oh, he's gone, everybody. It's down to me, and I can't even control the podcast as well, so I haven't got any control. So I hope he comes back. Let's go through some of the comments. Who else has been chatting in here? Damsky says we need a good start again. Let me get through some of the more recent ones. Geordie Toon for Life says, I know that feeling well, Kevin. Yeah, absolutely. Ronan says, first 3, Palace, United and Newcastle away. Get the misery out of the way. Christos says, we had with Sheffield United, but because of a change of fixture. Oh, yeah, of course, when Egan got sent off, didn't he? That was a good one. Let me see what else we got here. Can we play Auckland FC, Gary? Gary, I'd love us to play Auckland. By the way, did everybody see that that Club World Cup situation? Auckland, absolutely horrendous. How is that even a thing that you can play a competition like that and lose 10-0? Rich, I'm just filling time here, mate. Chat about Club World Cup.
My computer just completely restarted, so sorry about that.
It's all right. I was going through the comments.
Auckland FC, yes.
I said I can't even control the comments or the podcast. I haven't got controls of it, so I'm just gassing. So anyway, there we go. Everyone just put in the comments, say love the last minute and a half. So I appreciate it.
Steven says, "Go, Kev. This is your moment to take over." There we go. Did you pass the test?
I don't know.
But we will close on James's question, and I think it's apt because we've talked about the fixtures. So his question is, can we win the league?
Someone's got to win it. No. Not at the moment. We can't win the league. No. Not with Liverpool signing in their signing. You know, there's points to make up, and they bring in Wirtz and Frimpong. Like, they brought anybody else in as well.
Kirkes, they're bringing in from Bournemouth.
Oh, Kirkes is very good, isn't he? Very good. Yeah, no, I think probably not. I mean, someone's got to win it, but I don't think it'll be us unless we do some absolute magic in the transfer market. If we bring in a top quality right back, right winger, number 10, you know, we sort the Watkins and Martinez situation out, then you know what, you could have a stab at the top 4 and then be amongst it and see what happens, get a bit of momentum. But yeah, I know it might disappoint everybody. I don't think probably we can.
This is an early indication for the season predictions. This is an early indication, Kev. A little bit more humbled at this stage. We'll see. We'll see what window we have, because I'm sure your mood, or if we make a big signing at some point in the next few weeks, get this June the 30th deadline out and make a big signing, you're going to be like, "That's it, we're winning the lot."
Well, again, someone's got to win it. The thing is, right? I predicted us to finish 3rd, right? And we were 5 points off 3rd. We were 3 points off 4th. So, you know, it was really close. And actually, if we'd not conceded that goal to Man City, and if only my auntie had, she'd be my uncle. I get that. But, you know, it was a prediction which looked like it was way off turn of the year. But, you know, we nearly did it. I thought when we kept winning those games, I thought we were going to nick 3rd.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been humbled a little bit. The thing is about last season is it was the fact that it was the hope that killed us, wasn't it? Because it was just such a good end to the season, and then in those key games we fluffed our lines. But anyway, apologies everyone. I'll make sure Positive Kev's back next podcast. Hopefully,
Adam knows it. Adam already knows it. We're going to get you saying we're winning the league at least 10 times next season. So yes, we will get him. We will get.
I'll be back. Don't worry. Rich, I can see it happening now. We'll make a big transfer, and you'll tag me in something, and I'll be on Twitter going, right then, I'm changing my tune. It's happening. It's happening. Yeah. Carl Walker-Peters is going to drive us to the league.
Right. I think that does us. Great first show back for a while, so I'm sure we'll have more to talk to in the next week or next couple of weeks. We'll do another fans forum, I'm sure. Keep your Villa Park pod fix. I will be back with plenty more transfer talk, rumor shows, and hopefully, you know, maybe get a couple of guests on. We'll get Gareth on as well to talk about potential transfer targets. So loads to come over the summer. And before you know it, we'll be back watching the pre-season games and worrying already about the start of the season. So make sure you stick with the channel. Hit the like button on your way out and do subscribe if you are new to the channel. Thank you, Kev, for jumping on. Great to have you back, mate. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.